For the practice and skill learning, a bullet tip marker, and also a pen/marker with a brush tip if possible. Also, let's not scroll down too far here. Also, for the Canvas project, which is what we're actually doing today, an 8x10 canvas was recommended, pencil and a good eraser, and then a fine tip acrylic paint marker in multiple colors, or permanent markers in black in your choices of color. Let me just get back to the right screen here. And then I'll also put in the comments, Amy did recommend a kind of a kit that has a lot of these things in it. That would be a great gift or something to get yourself eventually as well. So I'll link to that. And then in the meantime, I'm going to turn this over to Amy.
Thank you so much. I am excited to be here. This is my first time visiting Michigan, although it's only virtually, but I am really excited that you guys are doing this workshop with me tonight. One of the silver linings about the whole pandemic situation, if we're allowed to have one, is parts of the country that I wouldn't be able to visit on a regular weeknight. So I live in Maryland, and I'm just hanging out in my basement in my craft studio, and I get to interact with all of you, which is pretty awesome. So the downside to the virtual events, though, is first of all, you can only see my hands. So I'm sorry you can't see my smile. I had to pick one or the other, and I figured that for tonight's purposes, my hands are more important. So that's what you're going to be seeing. And the other downside is that it's really hard for me sometimes to judge the pacing of the class and to address questions and things if you all aren't able to use that chat and interact with me, because I can't see what you're doing and I can't hear you if you say, oh, wait, slow down, or okay, I'm ready, let's move on. So there will be times where I might ask you to put a thumbs up or, you know, a question in the chat just to help me as we go through. And if I miss something, you can type it again, and hopefully Sara can kind of help back me up as well and read any comments or questions that I missed. But I am thrilled that you're here with me tonight to do some hand lettering. As Sara mentioned, my newest book, Hand Lettering Off the Page, just came out. And this one is a little different. If you've seen some of my previous books, what's special about this one is that instead of just being a workbook where you're designed to do your projects on the pages, this one takes the lettering off of paper and onto surfaces like canvas, ceramic, plastic, leather, wood, fabric, and all different kinds of things for 25 different projects, so you can letter everything in your life. So today we're going to be working on this canvas, but before we do, we have to build our base skill set of hand lettering so that you know what you're going to do on that canvas that you have. So as a quick reference, if you want more in-depth on anything that we talk about tonight, I have all kinds of posts and free practice pages at amylattacreations.com, so you might want to jot that down. And I am everywhere on social media, including I just got a brand new TikTok, which is completely intimidating. I think I'm way too old for that, but I did it anyway. So you can find me everywhere at Amy Latta Creations on social media. And if you happen to take a photo or tag anything that you're doing tonight, your practice or your project, please share it and tag me, and also tag the Alpena County Library, because they would love to see and to reshare as well. So let's jump in and get started. You have some handouts, correct, that we printed out? No. Yes? No? Maybe?
Nope. No. Not provided any handouts.
Oh,
nope.
Yikes. Okay. So luckily, we can do it without them. And all you're going to need is, I thought Charlotte sent you those links. All you need is some paper, just some plain paper, and we're going to start with a bullet tip marker, which is any kind of regular normal marker you have. I am using what's called a Tombow dual brush pen. This is part of that recommended kit that I told you about. One end is a regular thin bullet tip marker, and the other end is a brush tip, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But right now we're using that regular bullet tip. And again, a Crayola marker, a Sharpie marker, anything with just a normal end is going to work for this. So when we talk about hand lettering, There are lots of fonts and embellishments and styles that go into that, but the most common thing that people think of is a font that we call brush script. And that's what I've used here on my canvas. And this is what you see in tons of designs. You see it everywhere. If you go to Hobby Lobby or Michael's or Target and you want to buy a sign, chances are it has some writing that looks like this. And what makes brush script so unique is that within every letter, there are parts of the letter that are thick and parts of the letter that are thin. Do you see that contrast? That's what gives it its signature look. And that's what we're going to learn how to do tonight. There are two ways that we can achieve this. One of those ways is called faux calligraphy. So we're just going to jot down, and I'm just going to write this here for you so you know what you're doing. Faux calligraphy. And this is going to be our fake it till we make it way, because the other method, brush technique, special brush tip, and a lot of practice and repetition. We're going to touch on that, and I'm going to give you a chance to practice it, but I do want you to start with faux calligraphy, because faux calligraphy is something that's super simple and anyone who knows how to write in script or cursive can do it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the word joy. It's almost Christmas time, so we're going to start here, and I want you on your paper just to write the word joy. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make some of these lines thicker and some of the lines thinner. We said that's what makes brush script have its unique look. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to thicken some of our lines to make it look that way. But the trick is, where are we going to make those thick lines? So if you'd like to make a little note for yourself, anytime that our pen moves across paper and we're writing, it moves in one of three basic directions. It can move up on the paper away from us, which is called an upstroke. And I promise this is as technical as we get. Upstroke moves up away from us. We can also move our pen down toward ourselves. Anybody, 25 points for the first person to tell me what this might be called. This is an upstroke. This is a, what do we think?
Downstroke.
A downstroke. 25 points for Kathy. Then sometimes our pen is going to move horizontally or diagonally across the paper, which is just a horizontal stroke. So what we want to remember is that in hand lettering, our downstroke is thick. Everything else stays thin. So our job is to find the downstrokes and make them thick. So here's how we do that. We're going to go back to our word joy, and we're going to think about how our pen moved on the paper. When we started the J, the pen was moving up, so we're going to leave that alone. But right here on that stem, our pen is moving down on the paper. This is a downstroke. So what we're going to do is draw a second line next to the first one. Then we switched back to an upstroke, so we're going to leave that part alone. When we come to the O, we're going to ask ourselves the same questions, and we're going to find those places where our pen was moving down, and we're going to give ourselves some double lines. So on the O, it's the left side, and if you have a loop, some people don't use a loop, but if you have one, it's that downward part of the loop. And on the Y, it's going to be the left side and that long stem. So you should have the word joy with your downstrokes having double lines right now. And then the third step is simply to color in between those lines. And what that does is it gives us the illusion that those parts of the letters are thicker than the others. So now your joy should look something like this. So far, so good. Kind of makes sense. So a quick breakdown of that. This is all that the handout was. It's just written, double lined, and colored in. That's our three-step process for faux calligraphy. We're just figuring out where is the downstroke, double lining it, and coloring it in. So now that you've written the word joy once, I want you to try it again, because the first time that we do something is never going to be the best time that we do something unless it's a crazy fluke. So what we're going to do is we're going to try it again. And my guess is that you're going to like this one better than the first one. So we're going to write joy again. If you did it really big last time, make it a little smaller. If you did it tiny, make it a little bigger. Play with it. And we're going to find those same areas. We're going to do our double line, and we're going to color it in. If you are someone whose natural handwriting puts your letters very close together, for example, if your joy looks like this, you're not going to have a whole lot of space to do those double lines. So you may want to intentionally leave a little bit more space in between so that you have room to go back in.
We have a
Now,
question,
one
Amy.
question that I always...
Someone asked, do you
Yes?
always make the dots above the letters darker?
What was that?
Do you always make the dots above the letters darker? Like on your
I
J's?
do. Yes, I do, because if I don't, they get lost. Another question, that was a good one. Another question that I always get asked at this point is, does the double line go on the inside or the outside? And the answer is, there's no definitive answer. It has to do with where you think spatially it looks best. So I put this one on the outside because I had a lot of space between the J and over here. There's a good bit of space between the O and the Y. So I'm going to put this one on the outside over here, this one over here. So it's kind of a matter of looking at your letter where it's going to look the best and the most balanced. But there's no right or wrong for whether you're going to the inside or the outside. Another thing that you'll notice if you look at my J is that as soon as I get down to where my pen would start moving horizontally and up, I stop my double line. Because what happens a lot of times, people aren't always sure where to stop it. So they take it too far around, and then it doesn't look right, and then they keep going, and then you end up with a J that's just bold and not brush script at all. So we want to stop. If you think about an invisible line being right here where your pen shifts movement, that's where you're going to stop. And the same thing happens at the top of a letter as well. So if that kind of makes sense to you, I would love to see an emoji in the comments, a thumbs up or a yes, or anything that lets me know that that kind of makes sense to you and that you're following along with me. That would be that would be awesome. So what we want to do as we're working on our faux calligraphy is try a different word. So we're going to try a word. It could be love, it could be marry, it could be your first name, unless your first name is 50 letters long, and then you might want to go with love. But you can write any of those words that you like. And all we're going to do is those same 3 steps. We're going to write our word. We're going to find the downstrokes. And then we're going to go back and color them in. And we're going to have another word that looks like we wrote it in brush script. Now, the trickiest thing about this is figuring out where those downstrokes are. So this is a look at the entire alphabet. We've got our lowercase alphabet, our uppercase alphabet, and I've also given you an uppercase print alphabet here as a reference, just so that you can see where the thick lines and where the thinner lines are. So since you don't have this in front of you, I'm going to leave it right there so that you can look at it as you're doing your practice right now, and just kind of look at those letters as a guide for where those downstrokes are. You can always figure it out just by tracing over your letter and figuring out where your pen is moving and how. But this is just a little reference sheet to help you so that you don't have to think quite so hard. And you can certainly form your letters in the way that you normally form them. So for example, if you see my S, I tend to do my hand lettered S to look a little bit more like a printed one than like the traditional cursive S. There's no right or wrong. If you would rather write your form of S, that's fine. Just find the downstroke, which in a regular lowercase s would be that right side. and you're going to thicken that and it'll be just wonderful. So let's see, could I demo an M? Do we want a big M or a little M?
Little.
A little M, okay. So I'm going to put that there so we can still see it. Okay, a little M, I would write like this, and then the stem, and then the right side of each of the humps is going to get colored in like that. Any other letters that we'd like to see?
I will
So
say
again, we're
that
just-
after this, oh, someone said a capital T, but after this, I will also see if I can get a copy of this to send out to everyone, just so you have it for the future.
Yes, I will make sure that you have these handouts. I'm not sure why they didn't get to you. So capital T can be written in lots of different ways. There's kind of the more print version and the more cursive version, but that's how I would do those two. It's the stem is the thick part and everything else is thin. But yeah, we'll make sure that you get this. And also, if you go to my website at amylattacreations.com, there's all kinds of practice pages and reference sheets and things too. And in all of my books, I have sample alphabets that you can refer to. So if you happen to own one of the books, you can open up and you'll find the sample alphabets there as well. But yeah, so what we want to do is we want to practice whatever word or name or whatever it is. If you are planning on doing your Canvas just like I did, you're going to want to practice your last name. Another option for your Canvas, because you're just learning, is that you can do sort of a condensed version, which is just your monogram. And that's something that's a little bit less to bite off when you're first learning how to do this. I know some of you are guests who have taken other workshops before, and so you might be ready to do your last name, but if this is brand new to you and a little overwhelming, just work on that letter that you want to do. It can be your monogram, or it can be somebody you want to give it to as a gift, any way that you want to do that, but you can kind of focus on one letter, or you could even do the word joy and put that in a wreath. That would be really nice as well for the holidays. Are there any other letters that you would like to see me write? If not, you can just refer back to this for where we want to see the downstrokes, where the thick parts are. And if anybody wants to show me what you're working on, you can. Cursive capital A. So you can do just a large version of the lowercase one like this, and it would be the left side and then the right hand stem. Or you can do something that's a little bit fancier, and it would just be that on the right side, the downstroke. I like the A since that's my Amy. Okay. So as you're practicing, I hope that you'll find that the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with this technique. This is, like I said, one of the two ways that we do this. Let's see, capital M, and what's the second part? I can't see that. Capital M is going to be just a bigger version of our lowercase m, or if you want to be fancy, we can do something like this. And your downstroke would be the first diagonal line and your right side stem. So you can do something fancy like that. And what was the second letter in that comment? I couldn't see it. It cut off on me.
I think they might have sent it to you privately, so I can't see it.
Oh, darn. R. Okay.
Okay.
Capital R, I'm guessing. So there we go. You're welcome, Maggie. So we're going to do the stem and then just that part of the loop, and then our downstroke as the stem of the R comes down. That's a pretty one. I like the R's. So, and again, with all of these, you can get as loopy or as non-loopy as you want. It's write the letter however you like it to look, and then you just find the downstrokes. It's not a right or wrong. It's just your artistic style. So this, again, is faux calligraphy. It's write your word, find your downstroke, make it thicker. Now, this is not only something that you can do on paper, but I told you my hand lettering off the page book is all about doing this on other surfaces. Oh, hyphens I would thicken. Yes, Paula. So what is good about this faux calligraphy is you can do it with any kind of writing tool. You can do it with chalk. So you can do this on chalkboards, on slate. You can do it with chalk marker. You can do it with paint pens. So when you're doing it on your canvas, what I did on here is faux calligraphy because paint pens do not have brush tips. If you want to make a wooden sign, anything else like I did on my tote bag here with fabric paint and a brush, you can't, you know, I did faux calligraphy with all of these things because unless you have a brush tip marker, this is really, really hard to do using the brush script because you need that particular tool. And brush pens only really work on paper because they're water-based for the most part. And so this is a technique that you're going to use to take your lettering off the page and onto other surfaces. So don't feel like this is just the beginner way to do it and that, you know, really advanced people only ever do brush script because that's not the case. I use faux calligraphy probably more than the actual technique because I'm always lettering on things like my shoes and my purse and I can't use the brush tip markers to do that. All right. Does anybody have any questions about the faux calligraphy before we move on? Okay.
What kind of a pen are you using right now?
I'm glad you asked. This is one of my favorites. This is a Tombow dual brush pen, and I will write that down for you in case you want to go to the Google. This, you can get them at Michael's. You can get them on Amazon. Michael's actually, I don't know if they're still running the sale, but they had a super sale on these guys. They were like $14.99 instead of $26.99 for a 10-pack last week. So you can check that out. You can also use your Michael's coupons on them. And Hobby Lobby has them. But Tombow dual brush pens come in sets of 10 based on color palette. They're available in 108 different colors. And they have the bullet tip that works for the faux calligraphy, and they have the brush tip that we're going to work with in just a second. So these are definitely a good investment. Tell Santa you've been really, really good and you need one in your stocking. Okay, so now we're going to talk about that second method, which is brush technique. So we covered the fact that the lettering that we're going for has a combination of thin lines and thick lines. Faux calligraphy gives us one way to do that, and brush technique is the other. To do this, you need a brush pen. And what makes it a brush tip is that it's flexible. And I don't know how well you can see that, but it doesn't look like a regular marker tip. And what happens is if you press it onto the paper, you'll notice that it bends. And that's very, very important, that flexibility of the tip, because the whole way that a brush pen works is based on the amount of pressure that you apply when you're writing. So when we press hard, we get a dark, thick line. But when we don't press hard, we get something that's very contrasting. We get a thin line instead. So just like before, which lines are our thick lines? The downstrokes. So what I want you to do, if you happen to have a brush pen, it could be a Tombow dual brush pen, or if you happened to get the supply kit, this guy, the Tombow, not that one, this one, the Tombow Fudenosuke, this is also a brush pen. It's just a smaller one, but it has a flexible tip. And mine is dying because I use it all the time. This is my favorite. But what I want you to do with your brush pen is I want you to push as you're pulling it down on the paper toward yourself. And what happens is you're going to get these nice thick lines. Not this thick, you're not pushing harder, but I promise you it's made. Then in contrast, when we go up on the paper or horizontally, we're not going to apply that same kind of pressure. We're just going to let it glide across the page like it's nothing. Just horizontal, up, across, and see the difference that we get in our lines? So the idea is that as you get comfortable with this, if you're writing a letter, like our J, we don't press, we press, we don't press. And we get that look without the extra steps, just by controlling the pressure that we're using on our marker. Make sense? So the making sense and the doing it are two different things. So instead of jumping straight to the alphabet, what I always tell folks to do is we do a series of drills. You go down, up, down, up, down, up, and alternate those strokes. And do it a million times until your hand is like, cool, yeah, I got that. And then you go down, up without picking up your pen, like so. And that is, fancy term, underturn. It's called an underturn in hand lettering, and it's the basis for letters like U, or letters like W, or letters like V. An upstroke into a downstroke is called an overturn, and it's what we use when we write an N or an M. So all of these drills are building blocks, pieces of letters that we put together. There are ovals, and I certainly don't expect you to keep up with this part right now. I just want to show you the drills that you can do. There are loops. So we have all these different shapes. And then once you kind of get a feel for making these shapes, we can combine them like an oval and a loop to make a letter. So that's how the brush technique works. It's all about applying and releasing pressure. And I just want you to get a feel for that so that you know if it's something that you would be interested in trying more. It's one of those things that gets in your muscle memory, just like driving a car or riding a bike. And the more your hand does it, the more it learns where to press and where to release. And you don't have to think so hard or work so hard. Before you know it, you'll be writing your grocery list like this. But you have to be willing to do it over and over. I always say that practice makes progress, because none of us are perfect. But the more you do it, the better it's going to feel and the better it's going to look. So I have filled sketchbooks with nothing but these kinds of things, and then learned how to put them together into letters. So that is the second way to get the look of that brush lettering. We've got faux calligraphy, and we've got brush script. And I've got lots of practice pages for those on the website as well. And what I'm going to send to Sara to send out to you is a practice sheet where you can trace over these letters with a brush pen if you like. Can I talk about the top of the loop? Top of the loop, what? Can you see the rest of that? It cut off.
No, I can't.
Transition. Okay. It's tricky. The top of the loop transition is kind of sneaky. So you're just going up, and then at the moment where you would start to move down, that's where you press. So that was kind of slow motion, but imagine a line kind of coming right down here. It's kind of right in the center of that top. That's where you're going to press. So that is brush technique. And the other thing that we want to look at, in addition, oh, do we have a question?
Could I ask a question? Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm left-handed, so on my downstroke, my brush is pushed to your right when you're sitting in front of it. But then when I go to my upstroke to get it fine, I have to stop and figure out how to get the brush tip finer. I don't know how to explain it. Let's see, how can I explain this? Okay,
so one thing I'll tell you is
when
that
you're making an O. And I transition to go up. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's hard to get it to go.
It doesn't want to.
No. And so when you do your work, when you're pushing downstroke, your brush stroke's probably to the left, right?
Right. So because you're doing.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
It's a little awkward. Yeah. So
it's definitely harder as a lefty. Right. I'll give you that.
Oh, okay. I just have to practice it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Dawn Nicole, it's I'll write her name, Dawn Nicole Designs. She is a left-handed letterer, so she has some tips on her website specifically for lefties.
Okay.
So she can speak to that better than I can. But I know at least you're in your right brain, right? So as you are doing your words, one other thing that I'll say about the brush script is that a lot of times it's easier, especially at first, to write one letter and then write the next letter and then write the next. And don't feel like you have to continue always like you were writing in cursive, because hand lettering is a different art. So don't be afraid to pick up your pen and start again. You don't have to make every one of those transitions. You can write a letter, stop, and then start again. Okay, so as we get ready to move to the canvas, the other thing I want to do is show you a few simple embellishments that you can use on this or on any of your lettered projects. So the first one I want to show you is a leafy vine, and this is what's going to actually turn into your wreath. And to do that, all you're going to do is make an arch, and then you're going to put a shape on the end that looks like a little teardrop or a raindrop. And then you're going to go down that line, and you're just going to draw some little leaf shapes. And as I do this, I see that I've got a question about what's a good paper or journal to use. I use a medium weight sketch paper if you're talking about for practice. And for that, I like the smoothest paper possible. I hate buying sketchbooks online because I can't touch them. So I like to go, I'm that weirdo in Michael's who stands in the aisle and feels all the paper. But the truth is, what I can't stand is when my pen snags. If there's any kind of texture to the paper, like regular watercolor paper, it's terrible for lettering. So what you want to do is you want to find the smoothest medium weight sketch paper possible for your practice. And then for anything that you would want to frame, you want hot press watercolor paper, which is actually a thing. And I didn't realize that, but it actually, it works like watercolor paper. So if you want to blend colors or anything, you can, but it's perfectly smooth like cardstock. The other thing that you can also use is Bristol board. Bristol board is great for hand lettered finished projects. So those two, or the medium weight sketch paper. Some people like to use dot journals. And so they have like the little, instead of a whole grid, you get dots just to kind of help you line your designs. I find those distracting. I don't like them. I like my plain paper, and then I can sketch in guidelines with pencil and go back and erase them, but it's all about your preference. But medium weight sketch is what I like. All right,
Amy?
so for, yes.
Paula had asked, does it make a difference if the brush pen is old or new? So obviously it can run out of ink, but is there like a certain life to pens that
as
you
long
recommend?
as it's juicy and has ink, no. You know, if it's not writing nicely for you and you feel like it's running dry, then it's obviously not a good pen. But you know, and I would also suggest to extend the length of the life of your pen. Store them horizontally. Don't do this.
Oh, okay.
So keep them this way, because then the ink goes right down out of the bristles. So you want to store them horizontally always.
Okay.
So I'm
All right.
an amateur bullet journaler, and I have a bunch of brush pens, but I haven't used them much. And I've noticed that some of them, even like I have a whole set of Tombos, duals, they even vary within themselves. I feel like I put the same amount of pressure, but the brush reacts differently. And I didn't know
Oh,
if
that's interesting.
when it's older, is it like more flexible? And is there a preference?
Well, the more you've used it, it gets sort of broken in, if you will, and then it's a little bit more flexible. Yes, I can see where that would happen for sure. And the same thing, like with the Tombow Fudenosuke, eventually you can tell looking at the tip where I apply, like the angle that I hold this pen, because it sort of starts to form to the shape. So the older that they get, yes. But they're definitely still usable as long as they still have ink. Okay, so for our leafy vines, you can see we can alternate our leaves. We can alternate sizes. So like you can get bigger as you go down to the bottom. You can keep them all the same. For your leaf shapes, you can go really pointy. You can go rounded. Anything that you want for your leaves is totally fine. You can put the detail line or not. You can put more detail lines. Again, there's no right or wrong. It's just whatever you like. And then you can go back and color those in. And for our purposes on the canvas, what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a wreath. So to do that, I don't know about you, but I can't draw a perfect circle to save my life. So what we're going to do is make it messy on purpose. So we're just going to draw a circle and kind of retrace in the same general area about 3 to 5 times. And that's going to give us the suggestion of a circle that's pretty decent, but it's not perfect. It's hand drawn. And we're going to go back around that circle and we're going to put our little leaves. And this makes a really nice Christmas wreath. It would be really nice on a gift tag. If you think about writing your joy inside, that would be a really pretty little gift tag or somebody's monogram. But you just go all the way around that wreath. And then you can add things like you can add in little berries, holly berries like I did there. And in here you can see I also did like some little pine sprigs. I just did a line with some lines coming off of it. I did a couple little holly leaf shapes. So you can kind of get as creative as you like with that. Oh, another bullet journaler. Awesome. Very good. So that is, you can do as many leaves or as few leaves as you like. You can see this one, I spread them out a lot more versus this one, they were a lot more packed in together. All right. And then the other embellishment that I want to show you for your canvas is the messy flowers that you see here. So to do those, we're going to do the same thing that we did for the wreath, which is that traced over circle. And then we're going to go in the center and we're going to make a bunch of dots. And I'm doing all of this, by the way, I should have told you I switched markers. I went back to a bullet tip. If you try to do this with the brush tip, it'll get kind of funny. So we're just using a regular marker, any kind of normal tipped marker that you have. So that's going to give you your flowers, which you can then go back and color in. And then if you want some small flower buds, you can just draw a couple of spirals. Or you can do some 3-petal flowers, just 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That's simple. And then a couple little leaves. And again, any kind of leaf shape that you want. And you can always, but once you add some, and you can add that to your wreath. I did one, a set at the top and a set at the bottom. You could always do just one set. You could center it top or bottom, or you could do just the leaves or just the leaves and the berries like I did on this one. But that's basically the skills that you need to know for us to move on to the canvas. Now, there are tons of other embellishments that I would love to show you, banners and arrows and all kinds of other things. And all of those are available on the website and in my books. But for tonight, what we want to do is talk about this canvas of yours. So you should have, hopefully, and if you don't, you can always go out and buy one, or you can do this on Bristol board and frame it instead. But if you have a canvas or a surface that you're going to do this on, we want to think about what is it that you want to write. You could just do your last name all by itself. You can do your last name and family. You can add a year, or like I said, you can just do the monogram if that's what you want. And the first step is going to be that we want to center that on your canvas, and we want to sketch the position of your words. So if you have your surface, what we want to do is you want to take something, if you have a ruler, some kind of measuring device, or you can just kind of try to eyeball it. but you want to find sort of an intersection where the center is. If you have a pencil and an eraser, which if you got the kit, you should, you just want to make some really light sketching lines. And these are going to be erased when we go back, so you won't see them. But don't press hard, because if you press, you're not going to be able to erase it later. So just real easy. We're going to find the center. And then you're going to figure out what you want to write. So I'm going to pretend that all I want to do is write my last name. I'm not going to write anything else. I'm just going to keep it simple. So I'm going to count out. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters in my last name. So the third one is going to go at the center point. So that's where my first T in Latta is going to go. So I'm going to sketch that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my way out to the left and to the right. And that's what helps me stay centered. So anytime that I'm trying to position something, I find the center letter, or sometimes it'll be a space in between 2 letters, and then I work out and out. It's the same thing. I also do metal stamping. I make jewelry and stuff, and it's the same thing. You want to start with the center and work your way out. And that way you always know that you're correctly positioned on the page. If you would like to draw a guideline so that all your letters are perfectly lined up and straight, you can find a straight edge and just sketch in a nice line there, so you know that they're all going to sit on there like nice little soldiers. If you have bounce to your lettering, then you don't have to worry about that. But if you want them to be straight, if you are a perfectionist and you want them to line up, you can draw a little guideline there to help you. And the same thing if you want other things on your canvas as well. If you want to put a year, just sketch a nice little guideline. If I wanted to put ours, we got married in 2001, I would do my zeros, then the 2 and the 1. And then once you have your wording sketched, then you're going to gently sketch your wreath shape. And it can be circle, it can be oval. I do mine freehand most of the time, but you could also find a bowl or a plate or something that's kind of the right size that's in your kitchen and your home, and you can trace around that if you want a more perfect circle. But remember, we are doing that messy circle technique, so it really doesn't have to be perfect. Then once you have that, I would say you don't need to sketch all of the individual leaves. You know what you're doing, unless it makes you feel better to do that, which by all means, if it does, go back and sketch in every leaf. But if you feel pretty confident about that, the only other thing I would say is that you should sketch in the position of your flowers, just so you know where they're going to be. So if I decided I want to have a flower bunch right here at the bottom, I'm going to do 1, 3. I'm not going to sketch in all the details of the flowers because there's no point. I'm going to erase this pencil, and the less I have, the better off I'm going to be because I have less to erase. So I'm just sketching those general shapes. Then I'm going to get a paint pen or a permanent marker, and I'm going to start doing my lettering. I'm going to start in the center, and then I'm going to work out to the wreath, because what happens is if you start with the wreath and this is wet paint and then you go to letter on it, you're going to get your hand in it and it's going to smear and we're all going to be sad. So you want to start in the middle and then work out to the wreath so that you don't put your hand in wet paint. So the reason that we're using paint marker or permanent marker is because this is a canvas surface. So if we try to use our Tombow dual brush pens, these are water-based. And so yes, the color will go on here, but no, it won't be permanent. And if anybody in your house or your cat's tail or anything brushes against this, it's going to go smear and we're all going to be sad again. So we don't want to use the Tombow dual brush pens as much as we love them. We don't want to, so we want a paint marker. It can be acrylic, it can be oil-based, it doesn't matter. Any kind of paint marker is fine, or a permanent marker. If you got the kit that I recommended, you have, I don't think I have one sitting here. There is a pen called a Mono Twin, and it is a black marker that has 2 tips, and that is a permanent marker. So that you can use on your canvas. And then any kind of paint, like if all you have is the Mono Twin or a black Sharpie, do your lettering and your your detail work of your flowers, and then you can actually go back with paint and a paintbrush and you can paint in your flowers if you would like to do it that way. So your canvas is totally your masterpiece. I've got mine as design examples here that you can look at, but make it yours. Make it whatever you want it to say, whatever you want it to be. You're going to sketch it with pencil first, then go over it with the permanent marker and paint marker. And then once it's completely dry, you can go back with a good eraser, not one of those ones that smudges your paper. You want a really good eraser, test it out first. And then you can go back and you can erase all those extra pencil lines if there's any that you can still see. But do make sure, again, that it's completely dry before you do that. And then you're going to have a really nice piece of home decor or something that you can gift that anybody is just going to love. So this is one of many ways that you can take hand lettering off the page to make something really beautiful for your home and your family. So if anybody has questions about the project, please ask, feel free. Or if you have questions about anything that I've covered, now is your opportunity. This is your work time. And this is typically my favorite part of a workshop because I get to go around and see what you're doing and look at it and ooh and ah over it and take its picture because I get so excited to see all the different things that I would love to see photos. And this is a good Q&A time. If there's anything that didn't make sense, anything that you want to ask, you can ask questions about the lettering, about the books, about me, about really anything. We can talk Christmas songs again if you want. Anything you want to chat about while you're working is fine by me. And so the chat is open. If you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, feel free to do that too. But I am here to answer your questions and to help you as you work on your projects. Oh, that
nice,
looks so
Paula.
good. Could you see that? She was holding up joy. That looked beautiful.
Yeah. I hope to, after, when you finish your projects, if you don't get to show them off here and you're willing to, please email me pictures and I'll make sure that Amy gets to see them. And also, I'll ask permission first, but I'd love to share them on the library social media too, so people can see what everyone was working on.
Yes.
Amy, I don't know if other people will have questions, but I was wondering if you could maybe tell us about one of your favorite projects that's in the book for beginners or for people who are more experienced, or just a couple that you really like from the book.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I'll show you my favorite. My favorite is my shoes.
Oh.
So I got a pair of just white canvas slides from Old Navy, and I used a paintbrush and, well, I used a pencil first and I sketched what I wanted to put on here. Then I used a paintbrush and Fabric Creations fabric paint. And I decorated my shoes, and I also did the sides and backs of them, which you can see here. And out of all the projects that I made, these have gotten the most use. I finished the projects for the book back in January of this year, January of 2020, back when life was still normal. And I have worn these shoes like every day since then, and they still hold up. They still look, I mean, they're not quite as bright white, but they still look awesome. And I get so many compliments on them when I wear them. People want to buy them, but it was just so fun because it was so different from the lettering that I typically do because I'd never lettered on clothing before like that.
Yeah.
I've done t-shirts using the Cricut and vinyl and things like that, but I had never actually like painted my shoes. So that was really a cool thing for me. And then speaking of the Cricut, I don't know, I assume that some of you all are probably just pretty crafty folks in general. This is a t-shirt that I did. If you have a Cricut machine, you can take your hand lettering and you can actually make it into something that the Cricut cuts out of either vinyl or infusible ink. And then that's just another way to transfer the design. So this was a heat transfer, but this is my lettering Then I sent it to the Cricut and it cut it out, and I was able to do it as the heat transfer. And then I also did it as vinyl on a phone case. So it's pretty neat how you can digitize your lettering and turn it into some really fun projects too.
I think that there are lots of ideas in there for future programs. So,
Oh,
that's really
absolutely.
cool.
Yes. And there's one that even uses books that I saved from the thrift store. I don't know, the librarian might hurt me here, but I peeled the covers off of these paperbacks and then lettered on the spines, and they just make such a pretty little decoration, and they're still readable. I didn't hurt them really.
Books do have lifespans. It's okay. We have to pull books from the library too, I understand, to make room for new ones. So it's okay.
Yes, exactly. So see, it's saving them. It's giving them a purpose.
This is probably something that's in your books, but do you have must-have craft materials or tools that you always have with you that you use over and over again, that seem to kind of go beyond just one craft, something that everyone should have in their craft supplies?
Oh, are we talking beyond lettering, like just general crafts?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Everyone should own a jar of Mod Podge, and because it's everything. It's a glue, it's a sealer, it's perfect for everything. Everyone should have a hot glue gun, because I do not have time for craft glue to dry. And I personally use my Cricut for so many things, just every kind of project you can imagine. I'm always using it. So there's lots and lots of things that you can do, lots of surfaces that you can use that on. So if you're looking for a high dollar gift for Santa, the Cricut. But yeah, definitely the Mod Podge, and yeah.
Okay.
And just some really good permanent markers.
Do you have a favorite brand?
Well, I love the Tombow Mono Twin. All the Tombow markers are my favorite. I think that of all the markers out there, they're the highest quality. But if you don't have them, a Sharpie will do. And Sharpie makes some nice metallics, which I like a lot.
That's true. Does anyone else have questions or any progress that you're willing to show us? I'm going to
we'd love to see. And if
it
you
so
tag me
everyone-
online, I'm totally going to reshare it, and I'm not going to ask your permission. I'm going to assume that I have it because I get so excited to share the things that everybody's
Kristen,
making.
beautiful.
I can't see. What do I have to do? How do I see?
You should be able to, up at the top, switch your view so that you can see everyone.
All I can see is you and me. Let me see.
Up in the top, right. I had to think about it.
Oh, hi, Mom.
Hi.
Kristen is holding hers up there.
If you hold it up, just say hi, because then it'll switch to your face.
She's waving.
I still can't see it.
Hello.
Here's mine.
Oh, that's beautiful. There it is. Oh,
I love it. It's beautiful. Look at that. That is fantastic. See how easy that was? Love it.
All right, we have just a minute left. So if anyone has any last minute questions or things to share, I will make sure that everyone gets that practice sheet that Amy was showing earlier that either we didn't get or I missed. It's hard to tell which one, but I'll make sure that you all get that. See.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it, Kristen.
Oh, Amy, do you have other classes coming up that, like, do you do a lot of things like this that people can join? Is that kind of thing on your website?
I don't have the dates on my website. Actually, I need to update that, but I have been. This is like the 5th one that I've done recently. I have one coming up in January, but I'm not sure the date yet. I'm waiting on the coordinator to get back to me, but I do know. So for Michael's, I did a class with Michael's back in November. And if you go to their community classroom, it's actually, the class is on this holiday Canvas. So if you want a refresher and more on, we did specifically the brush technique with the Tombow ABT Pro, which is an alcohol-based brush pen. But if you want to do that, you can still access that class even though it's over. And then I have one in January on National Handwriting Day. I have one coming up with Tombow where we're going to be doing some brush lettering. And then February 3rd, I have a Michaels class where we're going to be making some Valentines. So if you keep an eye on the Michaels website, those are national classes via Zoom. So anybody can sign up and join in with those as well.
Are they already listed? Can I send the links out to everyone or not quite yet?
The January one should be because I
Okay.
submitted all my materials to them. The February one won't go up until a few weeks from now.
Okay, I'll look for the national handwriting one to send that out to everyone in case anyone wants.
Yes, that would be awesome. I'm so glad that you guys joined in. And if you go to my YouTube channel, I also have a version of this class on my YouTube channel as well that you can watch, just sort of a walkthrough of beginner hand lettering. I think it's about a half-an-hour video.
I don't know if it's Jenny or Jeannie, so sorry, but she is holding hers up and it looks beautiful. I don't know if you can see that, Amy. Let me see if I make it.
I can't.
Can you see it now if I do that?
Can you? No.
It's Jeannie. But I've got your
Oh, nice.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I've got your book on relaxation behind
Oh, I
the
see it back there. Yes.
back there. Oh my gosh, it rocked my world.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
I will also send out the link again to buy a copy of the book at Parallel 45 Books and Gifts in Alpena. Even if you're not from Alpena, because I don't think everyone here is actually.
Nashville.
Nashville, okay, well, there, or Knoxville,
Oh,
okay. Well, so you can still shop online from them, or again, from your favorite independent bookstore down in Tennessee. You might be a fan of Parnassus or something like that.
Yes.
Yep, okay,
Yes,
love
and
Parnassus.
I would say too, Amazon is sold out, so do go support your independent bookstores because you're probably going to get it faster that way too, let alone showing them some love. So,
all right, well, thank you, everyone. I am going to end the session. Thank you, Amy, for being here. I hope everyone had a wonderful time. Again, this is recorded, so as long as there's no hiccups, I will be sending this out to everyone to watch again, and then I'll send links to those other things that we talked about and that practice sheet as well. So thank you all for being here. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really fun.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you.
Thank you.